Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Your Overwatch. I'm Eddie the Chump and today we'll be talking about the new emerging meta, which I call the Frag meta. Quick disclaimer, this is based off the trial changes in the PTR, but I believe the inclusion of Ana and the almost certain buff to Zenyatta make this a worthy subject for discussion. Okay, first let's talk about Ana. The biggest thing to notice about her is her ultimate value. I'm not going to bore you with how it works, as I'm sure many of you have seen it in game. What it does do, however, is completely change the flow of a game. When she performs her ultimate, it puts the other team in an incredibly difficult situation. With a marauding character with buff, defense and offense, you're quite often pressed into taking them down as quickly as possible, and there aren't many easy solutions to do that. Many of you have watched Seagull's stream and know how powerful he thinks the character is. Might have seen him boosted with Genji, while combining with his ultimate. Let's just say the opposing team doesn't really stand much of a chance. There are only a few options. In a general way you can counter-ult it, Zenyatta is often used as a good choice, and although Zenyatta's ultimate has had its healing properties buffed, it doesn't protect against burst damage, so really it's not that effective against a Genji ult. What is viable, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of, is a counter-pick Ana. That's one of the problems with her. She makes the other team almost have to have an Ana of their own, because as it stands, Ana's sleep gun or her own ult to counter the other Ana's ult is one of the only good ways to properly deal with it. And it's more than that. What her ult actually does is create a very sharp spear, and because of that, the other team has to do it back. Another way that she changes the meta is in her denial of healing. Her grenade is actually one of the best parts of her kit, and it's really strong against heroes that can self-heal. Roadhog, for example, really suffers from this. A lot of what he does as a sort of tank DPS hybrid is do damage and then back out of the fight and heal. Well, if he's in the front line and he gets hit with an Ana grenade, he can just stand there healing and have it do absolutely nothing while you easily focus him down. So in those two ways, Ana kind of changes the meta just by her mere inclusion. And that actually follows into another point I've been thinking about, that support is the most powerful class in the game. Now that's been true in previous metas as well. By powerful I kind of mean the most important. It's not like a Mercy dominates a game, but she kind of does in a passive way, so that's why I say most important. Its mini meta affects everything else. The inclusion of Anya, the buffing of Zenyatta, these two changes in particular change the entire game, for me at least. Zen does a similar job. Zen's kit now really sharpens your DPS, but it also sharpens characters that are outside of the death ball. Characters like Tracer and Genji and Widow, they're now really important, and burst damage has become huge again. So what that means is, despite how important team fights were before, they're now even more important. I know that sounds kind of obvious, but the risks are so much greater now. Another thing to note is that team white ultimates have become rarer, and this works on offense and defense. In fact, Ana's ult has almost become the single most important one in the game. Because of the D.Va buff and other factors, it's now just much harder to get off that huge team white, so that puts more emphasis on the team fight. You can no longer save a point with a McCree's High Noon. Well, you still can, but not as reliably as before. I'd like to point out that the frag meta doesn't mean the DPS meta. Puncture tank characters like D.Va and Winston become more important, although I would argue that D.Va now makes Winston a fairly poor pick. She kind of does everything that he does, but just better. Because of this increased importance in the team fight, characters who can stay alive in the team fight become even more relevant. Characters like Mei and Reaper can evade and heal themselves. That's going to be a really hot commodity. This also means that high-level Zarya play where you're shielding the right people in the team fight becomes massive. Not that it wasn't before, but it was kind of cheesy when you double Zarya'd, and now in single pick, if someone's really good with Zarya and keeps the DPS alive or keeps the support alive, that's almost won a team fight in and of itself. So how's the frag meta different to the tank meta? Well, as I've said before, the stakes are raised, the knives are sharper, that's the way I look at it. In the previous meta on defense, say on Hanamura, a single death meant a huge amount. We'll try and imagine a meta where it means even more now. So like I said earlier, characters that can stay alive are now an absolute premium. You might think McCree is overpowered, but his limited movement and squishy character means it's an incredibly high risk pick, and that reflects the meta overall. That's the point I'm trying to make. There's loads of changes going on at once. Single pick, new characters, a new support mini meta means that things have just changed up completely. And like we said on the podcast, you're more likely to see more heroes used, but ostensibly doing the same job. There are a few losers in this equation. I don't really know where Pharah's position is. Widow being more important is not good news for her. She simply doesn't have enough health, and I'd argue that D.Va kind of does her job now. D.Va's the character that takes space, and that's what Farah did before. She was excellent excellent at gaining map control. She was an excellent zoner, and her damage didn't drop off. Well, D.Va can nip in and out now. Like I said at the beginning of the video, these changes aren't permanent yet, and we're not going to know the full extent of how it's going to play out, but these are just my thoughts on it. If you like the video, please leave a rating. If there's anything you want us to talk about specifically, don't hesitate to leave a comment down below. I've been Eddie the Chump, and until next time.